traveling the Vortex.
Diamonds are forever. Hold one up and then caress it.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode 538, where diamonds are a Whovian's best friend. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. How are you guys doing? Sean, you're back fresh off your boat trip. How'd that go?
Fresh from the boat. Yeah, it was kind of nice. We took a trip and went on a cruise out of L.A., which absolutely killed me to be in L.A. the weekend of Galley and not go to Galley. I mean, I drove past it twice. You know, it's like there it is. I'm not stopping. But instead, we went and drove down to Long Beach after flying into LAX and hopped on board a cruise ship and went sailing across the Mexican Riviera and had 3 stops. I'm going to struggle with pronunciation here, so bear with me. Puerto Vallarta, which we did not plan an excursion there, which was kind of unfortunate because we got off the ship and after you get through the kind of security barricades, which were very like World War II Nazi Germany, nobody goes into this area. I mean, big high fences and barbed wire and the whole bit. And then you had to cross a highway, and there was a mall and a Walmart and a Sam's Club, and it was very, you know, if you didn't go on an excursion there, you didn't really see much of Puerto Vallarta. It was just kind of like, well, this looks like everywhere else. It's just Mexico. So we kind of headed back to the ship and enjoyed it since everybody else was gone. And then the second port was Mazatlan. I think it's got a T, but it's silent. I don't know. And it was literally a port. And by that, I mean, you got up on deck and you looked out and you saw shipping containers and forklifts. And yes. Once again, if you did not plan an excursion, you were not going to get off the ship here because there was nothing to do there.
Marzipan, isn't that the plastic frosting they put on some cakes?
It is, and it's apparently from Mexico and quite delicious. You can actually eat the town. It's like Willy Wonka. And then finally we went to Cabo San Lucas. And that one we did have an excursion planned and took a nice little boat ride over to see the famous arch, which is a big granite rock structure. The
world famous arch.
World famous arch.
Don't we have that? You were a little off.
It's not
a little off course.
While we were out there, the boat captain spotted whales and chased them down, and we spent 20 minutes watching humpback whales breach, which was pretty awesome.
That's cool.
Darby whales.
And then went and hung out on the beach and had a nice lunch, and then did some shopping. And I mean, I knew going shopping in Cabo, we were going to get, you know, the quote unquote standards. There was going to be a T-shirt, we were going to get a shot glass, that kind of stuff. Now, I keep in mind, we booked this trip long before the Chiefs managed to get into the Super Bowl. And then suddenly I realize I will be at sea on Super Bowl Sunday. This game better be in a bar somewhere on the ship because I'm going to go out of my mind if I can't watch the Super Bowl. And I needn't have worried because it was on every television in every bar on every screen. On the boat. They had it on the Lido deck, and it was, you know, so that was kind of fun as a football cruise as it was because everybody came out and the surprising, maybe not surprising, large number of Chiefs fans on the ship. But so you know, I expected some semblance of okay, I'm going to get these souvenirs. I would not normally travel to Mexico to buy Chiefs memorabilia. They had Chiefs memorabilia in every shop you walked up to. They had something. Football was very big down there, obviously, you know, because it's Super Bowl week, but not just Chiefs stuff. I mean, they had Steelers and, you know, Green Bay, you name it, they had it.
Well, don't they play one
so
exhibition game down there every year?
I think they do in Mexico, yeah, in Mexico or in
Mexico
City.
and London, I think.
But so we're walking back toward the tour bus, and there's this really nice looking. It almost looks like a Harry Potter scarf. It's got the red and the gold of the Chiefs colors, and the logo on it and everything. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice. I don't need it, I don't. And she's trying to lure me in. The shopkeeper's like, oh, come look in. I was like, no, I don't need a scarf. It's not a scarf. Is it a blanket? No. And she takes it down. It's a poncho.
Cool.
Like an authentic Mexican poncho, like Pancho Villa would wear on a horse, but it's Chiefs colors. And I went, okay. And after Mel looked at me, he was like, is this what you want? And I held it up to me, and she goes, okay, yeah, that's pretty darn cool. So I bought a Chiefs poncho to wear.
Nice.
Now, in my defense, it was that or the red and gold Arrowhead logoed Mucha Lucha mask. And I figured I could get a little more use out of the poncho.
Yeah, definitely.
Which came first? The garment that you wear or the general from the Mexican Revolution?
That is a very good question. I do not know the answer to that. Keith, Imdaba.
To the Google.
Do the thing. But no, we spent a lot of time on the ship just kind of enjoying it because everybody else got off the ship. And we were like, that means there's nothing, there's no line. Let's go do the thing. So we had a good time, and I got through some more of my book. I'm still reading Stephen King's Fairy Tale because I'm taking it in very small doses, but I got through a good chunk of it while we were on the trip and relaxed a little bit and watched a great football game. So I was very pleased. It was a nice time.
Oh, good.
And thank good. I have to throw out a very quick shout out to the wonderful guy at the United counter. I think I told the story the previous recording session where we were flying to LA by way of Dulles International Airport in Washington, D.C. Did I say that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we get there and we check in, and the guy looks at our boarding passes and he stops and he goes, "Your final destination's LAX?" We said, "Yeah." "Why are you going to Washington?" And we said, "We don't know. That's just where they routed us through." And he goes, "That don't make any sense." He said, "Hold on a second." So he gets on the phone and he tappy, calls somebody. He says, "Hey, I'm putting 3 people on your plane. Was that aggressive?" "Yeah, we'll deal with it." And he hangs up. And he says, "You're going to go down to this other gate, and we have a flight that's going to Denver. It leaves right now, and then you only have a half-hour layover before the next flight kicks off to go to LAX."
Nice.
He shaved 4.5 hours off our travel time.
Nice.
And we were like, "Oh, thank you so much, kind sir." I wanted to hug him. So that was my week. I had a pretty exciting week.
Nice.
Mine was pretty low key. Didn't do much. Went and saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania over the weekend with the family. It was good.
Was it?
It's good. I really liked it. I don't want to say it was underwhelming because it wasn't. It's a well-paced, well-put-together, fun, visually stunning film. But I think what happened was, and I actually was kind of grateful for this, but I always try not to let my speculation become my expectation. And I've gone into films, all the time doing that. And so what happened was back with Spider-Man No Way Home, everybody was pointing to the multiple Spider-Mans and Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire and blah, 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 and Daredevil and blah, blah, blah. And I got so hyped up about that over other people's expectations that I went into that worried that it was going to be a letdown when it didn't have those, and it did have those. And then this time, without spoiling anything, there was a lot of talk of a way that this was going to go. The majority of people that talk about this and speculate on this, either on YouTube or podcasts or whatever, we're kind of all on board with this idea, or the majority of them anyway, of something happening or going a certain way, to the point where I thought, oh, okay, that's probably right. That's probably where it's going to go. And it doesn't go there. And so I was actually quite relieved. But on the flip side, I think I went in there with this preconceived, this is what's going to happen. So I was waiting for it to happen, and it doesn't happen. And so, and so I think that might have kind of tainted my viewing. So I want to go back now with a fresh set of eyes without those expectations and get a second look at it. But I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. It's good. It is a nice little way. It's not a complex way, but it is a nice little way to kick off Phase 5. And I think it's going to do a fairly good job of setting up the Kang saga. That's all I can say without spoiling anything, really.
So it wasn't overly complex?
No, it wasn't. Now, I think that the movie feels, or the producers felt like they needed to catch people up that maybe didn't see Loki. Okay. But they do it, I think, for me, it felt like a rehash, but they do it in such a different way. There's a theory also I have that I can't wait till you guys see this because I want to talk to you about it. Although I think I finally started poking holes in my own theory, but there's a theory about something that is set up in this that I kind of wonder if maybe they're going a certain direction with it. But no, I enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, and I probably will go out and buy the book that Scott Lang has. There's no secret. He's written a book. Yeah, he's written a book. Scott's written a book about basically, his life and saving the world and everything. Yeah. That book actually exists in the real world. They actually wrote that book, and I think it's either out in stores now or it's coming out in stores soon. So I plan to pick that up so I can read it. What about you, Keith?
Not much of anything new. Last of Us continues to be phenomenal and really good. And I picked back up the video game and I'm working through it very slowly. I think I'm getting close to the point where I quit the first time. So hopefully I can pass that and keep going.
I've heard nothing but good things about that show.
The show has been absolutely... I don't know what the right word is for it, but it is just good. It's just solid. The beginning of it has very much season 1 Walking Dead vibes, but then it starts branching off in different directions and does different things, so it doesn't feel so familiar all the time. And then where they left it now, I know I saw the Next Time trailer, but I don't know where they're going to go after this most recent episode, so that's kind of nice to not know what's going to happen next.
All right, before we move on to news, what's the verdict on Poncho?
Looks like 1850s was the only date I could find
for the man,
or the man, or the
for the garment.
Oh, okay.
But I think it goes back further than that.
Okay.
And he died in 1923.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was probably named for him.
Oh, it is?
He is Pancho, and that's Poncho. He has an A, it has an O.
Oh, well, there you go. There's the difference.
Well, they're not related at all.
Not related at all.
And I don't know if he ever wore a poncho.
There's probably very few pictures from the late 1800s. Oh, there is one on Wikipedia.
Yeah, there's quite a few pictures actually on Wikipedia. And he's always in a suit.
Yeah, it's more of a gaucho outfit, but yeah. Oh no, you're right. There's ones where he's actually in a suit. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one on a horseback, he's kind of got a gaucho outfit. Yeah. This one too. Huh. Yeah, he's in a suit. A lot of these though.
They used to wear the poncho in part of military too, so. That was the date I saw related, so I think it went even traced back further as far as traditional roots.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, well, let's move on to news.
Oh, the news this week is that Big Finish announced a box set for Ronnie Chandra called Ronnie Takes on the World, and it's going to come out in April 2023.
Ronnie Takes on the World, Beyond Bannerman Road.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Got to get the Bannerman Road in there because
Beyond Bannerman Road.
To me, that's what says this is a spinoff of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Not that having,
Ronnie Chandra's.
Right. Not that wasn't enough, but,
Right.
She could be traveling with the doctor at this point, which, that thing we all wanted to happen that didn't happen yet. So,
well,
yeah.
and it's Anjali Mohindra and Daniel Anthony reprising the role, and the mom. What was her name?
Geeta.
Well,
that's
Meeta
the
Anwar.
character's name.
Yeah, Meeta Anwar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're all making a return to carry on the torch that Sarah Jane left. So I'm excited for that. I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's such a clever idea. Having Ronnie become the next Sarah Jane and then reuniting her with Clyde. Yes,
Yep.
Sign me up.
Absolutely.
Very much so. I'm on board with that.
We don't have long to wait either. It's April of 2023, according to Big Finish.
This year, so
Yeah.
2 months away.
Yeah.
Do you collect Doctor Who? Do you have Doctor Who items and you don't know you collect Doctor Who? For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world, tune in to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, a Direction Point Network podcast. I am Larry Van Rosbergen, your host, and I have been collecting Doctor Who for 40 years. With popular features like collection protection and the most outrageous offer, we have a lot of fun. Available anywhere you get your podcasts. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point Network podcast.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space. In a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse. On shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
All right, well, let's move on to our review, which we are doing something a little bit different this week. We've decided that, actually, this is probably our first 60th anniversary year special that we've done. We're taking a look back over the years of the Diamond Doctor Who logos that they've utilized. And we've picked 2, 4, 6, 8 of them. There are certainly more variations on what we're going to discuss, but we decided we wanted to narrow it down. And we're going to talk about each different logo and what we like about them. And then at the very end, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me which of these 8 is your favorite. All right. Well, to start off with, the Diamond logo actually goes all the way back to 1973. Made its debut on the television series Doctor Who. The Time Warrior was the first story to feature the Doctor Who Diamond logo as the credits roll and it comes out. Then we see the third Doctor, John Pertwee. Something interesting about this would have been Pertwee's final season, right? That they debuted this. And in fact, a lot of people associate this logo more with Tom Baker than they do with, and rightfully so, because this logo actually went all the way to 1980 with and I think the last one to feature it was the Horns of Nimon before they went to the kind of neon glow version of it. But so rightfully
show of hands around the table. If you see this logo, I do not think Pertwee.
Right. No, I'm the same way. And in fact, this was the logo, probably the very first logo I ever saw of Doctor Who when it started airing here in the States, or at least on my PBS station. So,
just like I don't associate the Starfield with Tom Baker.
Right. And I think that's why I probably of all of the logos that Doctor Who has had, this is the one that I associate with the most. In fact, I even recently bought a picture before the logo made a kind of return, but I recently bought a t-shirt with this logo on it because this is the one that kind of speaks Doctor Who to me, because this was my first and probably, as I was watching the series, longest visualization of that logo.
Well, the other nice thing about it is, like, if you go back further to Hartnell and Troughton, they're not really stylized logos. This is a lot more of a stylized logo than we really have gotten before.
Yeah. There's a bit of a variation on their fonts, but this one particularly is as you say, stylized.
I'd even go so far as to say this is kind of legit the first logo, because with the title card for both Hartnell and Troughton and even early Pertwee, it was just changing the font.
Yeah.
It just came up, said Doctor Who, and that was it.
Right.
This is an actual legit logo. And the credit sequence was also designed around it. So as it, moves down through the altered time vortex in the diamond shape before turning into the standard, circular tunnel vision vortex.
Right.
I'm with you, Glenn. This is the soft spot, because this is this was the first. Much like Tom Baker, this was the first logo.
You know what I've never really noticed until I've stared at it for a while now? It almost looks like the top of the TARDIS.
Oh yeah, it does
if you
kind of
have a bird's eye view of the TARDIS. It almost looks like it could be a top-down look at the TARDIS, which makes the logo even cooler because it adds an added depth.
Yeah.
I never noticed that before.
Especially in this blue iteration of it. Obviously, when you get kind of the same thing later but different colors, it doesn't have that effect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I definitely the color helps a lot. The other thing that I kind of noticed as I looked at it longer, putting together this document particularly, is the pattern that's in the diamond itself. So the diamond is not just geometrically the shape of a geometric diamond, but almost with that pattern there, it's almost even 60 years ago, or not quite that long. Anyway, 50 plus years ago, it's kind of got it's kind of like an edge, like a cut diamond. You know how a diamond kind of has the different sides. And so it kind of almost looks like that. Like the pattern in the back is almost like a diamond that's been, cut, like an actual diamond gem that's been cut. And I'd never really thought of that until I started looking at it recently, but it kind of has that as well, which all the more so plays into that whole diamond anniversary for bringing it back. So,
yeah, that's true.
And of course, then this has what's considered the blue version and what is commonly called the orange version. And the orange version, the blue version is pretty much shades of blue. The orange version has even though it's called the orange version, it has several other colors in it with the reds and the orange and the yellow in it. But the next logo we're looking at is the Doctor Who merchandise logo. This is the logo that accompanied a lot of merchandise for the classic series from the 1980s all the way up until 1998. For the most part, this was, if you bought merchandise, for the most part, this is the logo that would have been on it. And this too, probably just slightly under the television logo. This is the other one that I sort of associate, because even though we didn't have a lot of merchandise over here, when I first started collecting stuff in the 90s, late 90s, Doctor Who merchandise, it still even had a lot of this on, because it was stuff that I was finding in comic shops or, merchandise stores that were specific to, niche stores. And so even some of this stuff that was sitting on the shelves in the early to mid to late 90s still even had this logo on it, even though they were printing, new stuff with kind of the McGann logo by 96, which was just kind of a rehash of even one of the Pertwee logos. But some of that was also on stuff, the DVDs was carrying that logo as well. But there was stuff that I was picking up that actually had this logo on it as well. So this was another one that it's kind of, when I think Doctor Who, I just associate this logo with Doctor Who.
I would agree. This is almost the most Doctor Who logo to me, also because the bright color palette speaks to the aesthetic of the show, especially in the classic era. And had I not really stopped to think about it, I would have assumed this would have been used on television at some point. But I think because of how much merchandise probably was out there with this logo and how much I saw it elsewhere on other stuff, I just have always associated it with the show.
Yeah, I'm the same way. This one, even quite honestly, even more so than the actual TV screen logo. This to me is the Doctor Who logo. Because while we didn't have access to a lot of merchandise, it was on every single thing that came out. The Target novelizations, the VHS tapes, the yearbook, if you could find it. It was always this orange and blue version, this variant. And so to me, this is Doctor Who. This is what the logo looks like.
And of course, because Doctor Who Weekly and Doctor Who Monthly publications were being printed in the 1970s, well, I should say Doctor Who Weekly from 79 to 1980 carried this, a variation on this logo, slightly different colorization, and where the original logo has the Doctor bent in a kind of a semicircle over the Who, the logo for Doctor Who Weekly goes a step further and actually kind of makes it a little more symmetrical by doing a curved box on the bottom and putting Weekly in that. So we have the Doctor and Weekly framing Who. And aesthetically, it almost looks better because, I would say better. Yeah, well, aesthetically, it almost looks better because it's almost symmetrical. But the longer I stare at it, then the more it bothers me because the top of the diamond peaks up over more than the bottom of the diamond. Yeah. And so that's a little bit irritating.
You got
Weekly
have
is
to
bolded.
Shift all of it up a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think they're going, based on the already placement of Doctor and Who and just kind of slapping the Weekly on there, and that's why it's done that way. But I think you easily could have just adjusted it up.
It's odd.
You also lose the added features to it, the bottom part of the diamond not having that little shape there, right. And
you don't have as much
half
pattern
circles
in the
not there. Yeah,
Yep.
It makes it a little bit more of a simple diamond.
I also think one thing I don't like about this is the coloration. It's just almost clashes with itself a little bit. It's almost like those colors don't quite go together. It's like they were trying to sort of match the colorization of the orange logo, but it's just not quite there because the colors are more pastel and muted.
Well, they're trying to save costs on the printing.
Well, that's true, yeah.
It's an Easter Sunday version of the logo, and it just doesn't quite work. What's really odd for me is I have a very classically structured brain. And when I say that, I look at classical architecture, and if you're going to put a wing on one side of the building, it needs to have a wing on the other side of the building. I like things that are balanced. And so the quote-unquote my Doctor Who logo, with this orange one with, all the detail and the oddball colors, should drive me nuts because it's unbalanced. It's this kind of weird, we had a diamond shape and then we just kind of threw details on top of it. It's like it's layered and it's got more and more layers that go toward the bottom. But then we kind of sort of made up for that by putting words on the top. But no, it's very unbalanced as a logo. Mm-hmm. That's rectified with this Doctor Who Weekly because, we're going to put the curve bar of text on the bottom, but it doesn't work for me. It's so strikingly wrong simply because I'm so used to the other one. Does that make sense? That
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
I see what you did there, and I don't like it.
Well, then, of course, when Doctor Who Weekly became Doctor Who Monthly, there was also a logo change at that time. And this logo went away. And in fact, they went with the variations of the logo that were very much in line with, one of them was the neon version. I think at one time the McGann version was on the logo. I think even one time there was a kind of a crazy, weird Seventh Doctor logo version on the front of the magazine at some point. But in 1991, at least from 91 to 94, issue 170, they brought back this diamond logo with a new look. They fixed a problem that I have with it somewhat, because now it's showing too much at the bottom. But they didn't stylize the bend in the magazine where they've got the text box, and they've done it straight across, which I think even aesthetically is a little bit better. But now too much of the diamond pokes out beneath, so it's still not asymmetric yet. But this was a return to this logo. And this logo, the particular one that I'm showing here, I just picked because it is a slightly different coloration. But the logo itself on Doctor Who Monthly at this time, the colors changed quite frequently. In fact, sometimes they were that classic orange that we're familiar with and we talked about earlier with the merchandising. And sometimes it was slight variations on this color as well. So it wasn't always the same. They kind of switched up the color palette on it a lot. So this is just one representation of what would have been on the Doctor Who Monthly magazine. What did you guys think of this one?
Yeah.
It serves its purpose.
It's there. I don't like the colors. I
like the colors a little more than the previous one.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the magazine tag being squared off, and it's centered up a little bit better underneath the Who. But that makes the top Doctor curve look all the weirder, and the fact that unlike Doctor Who Weekly, which is red background and white letters, Doctor Magazine is yellow background, red letters. Oh, and then we've also got this bold black print down at the bottom. It's like, it's just pick a font and a color, guys.
Number one, it didn't look weird until you brought it up to me. But number two, also magazines in a different font, which kind of throws it off a little bit as well.
But what's weird is that this logo, honestly, is addressing all of the problems that I had with the previous logo, but I still don't like it.
It fixed it, but it was the wrong fix.
The nice thing about it is it does accentuate the Doctor Who more than the magazine, whereas Weekly is kind of all a part of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Weekly is almost too big because it feels like it's a bolded font or something, and it's like, okay, we get it every week.
It's Doctor Who Weekly, where this is Doctor Who Magazine.
Right.
Magazine is just slightly smaller.
Doctor Who Magazine.
Yeah, no, not really a fan of that one.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next one, for the 30th anniversary, so the 60th wasn't the first time to do this. The 30th anniversary actually brought back the Doctor Who Diamond logo. And Doctor Who was not on the air at this time, but they were using this as television promotionals. I think maybe 30 Years in the TARDIS had a similar... I can't remember. I've seen that, but I can't remember what's in front of this. But this would have been the promotional materials for the 30th. Whenever you would have seen branding for the 30th anniversary, this would be the logo that you'd see. This time now they've gone back to, for the most part, that orange logo. Although this one gets a little washed out because it's a TV capture here. But if pretty much gone back to the classic orange logo, and then they've put a banner across the bottom, almost a ribbon banner with the 30th anniversary in it, and then of course below that it has the years 1963 to 93. So I'm glad they picked this logo for the 30th anniversary, because I think it kind of encompasses everything we talked about this logo, kind of being the symbol for the show and kind of its boldness and what it says about the show. Even though from 63 to 73, there wouldn't have been this logo around, but I think it still was a good representation of a good chunk or a good number of years under this logo.
Well, it even calls up to mind partially the later seasons logos with the star background and the lens flare in the corner.
Yeah.
So it even pays tribute to that. And the banner, the ribbon banner at the bottom, nothing screams 90s more than a ribbon banner to me.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
That thing was everywhere.
And that particular ribbon banner too, with that exact fold and everything.
Maybe not always so sharp of edges.
Yeah,
it was always there.
It's funny. I was going to comment the exact same thing. The lens flare look of it and kind of the blue drop shadow really almost calls to mind the neon logo. Even though we're using the quote unquote classic, but I think it's a good take on the anniversary. It's a nice update of a classic, even with the very 90s ribbon banner. But then even including the dates down at the bottom, which is kind of a nice touch too. I always like it when you can say, established 1963, and everybody goes, "Oh yes, you're old."
Well, it also requires me not to have to do any mental math,
and I very much appreciate that. No, nobody. I was told there would be no math. Nobody likes to do math.
Well, then moving on, the Doctor Who Missing Adventures, which Virgin Publishing had the rights to Doctor Who at this point, and they were publishing the New Adventures of Doctor Who with a different kind of banner on that. But when they did the Missing Adventures, they chose to go back to this classic diamond look. And this diamond look actually is quite similar to what we've got now, with kind of an inverse with the Who, because in this one, the Who is very bright white letters and almost has kind of a metallic sheen. Doctor is still in white letters with the blue on the background. But I think what this one does right, and I don't know why, because we still haven't fixed the asymmetry of it, but I think the Missing Adventures font on this works. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that it doesn't get too fancy or distracting, and the font is just subtle enough that it makes a point. And so I think that looks better when you're going to have a box with letters under it, unlike the magazine one that we talked about earlier.
This is a really nice, sleek, classy update of the diamond logo. The kind of gunmetal look to it. Again, we still get a little bit of the solar flare bouncing off of the light, glinting off of the Who. And the Missing Adventures, I think what makes the Missing Adventures banner work for me better than the others is that it's not highlighted in that there's no shadow box or line around it. It's just a blue bar across it. And for some reason that keeps the focus on Doctor Who as opposed to Missing Adventures, which I think is the problem with the weekly and the magazine, is they really kind of draw your eye into that, and this is just there. So this to me is a very classy, cool update to it.
Yeah, they didn't add any of the stylization to Missing Adventures, which I think is a tick in its benefit. It also almost feels like it could be in a comic book, like a very comic book-esque logo, which I like that about it.
Yeah,
I agree with everything else you guys said. It's a very nice, modern, up-to-date version of it with some nice beveled edges and shadowing.
And we did lose the background graphics of the diamond itself.
Yeah.
But I think I'm okay with that in this instance, because it maybe would have looked a little too busy or something.
Well, and
with what they did to Doctor and Who, I think it would have been way too busy to have additional details in the background.
And I think when the Doctor Who Weekly and the Doctor Who Monthly logos both still tried to kind of incorporate some of that pattern in the background, and I think that's part of the reason that doesn't work. This one just kind of does away with it, and I think it makes the Doctor and the Who part pop a little better. not that it couldn't have that texturing in the background, but I think with the missing adventures across the bottom, going to take away from that a little bit anyway. Just doing without it altogether, it works better. And then, of course, finally we land on the 60th anniversary logo. And, of course, I've got two versions here because, and this may have come out before Sean pointed it out to us, but when the 60th anniversary logo came out, it was this really kind of blue stylized look of the classic diamond logo. I didn't clue in on the idea that this is the 60th diamond anniversary. And it wasn't until Sean pointed that out. And it wasn't until after Sean pointed that out that then I later saw the 60th anniversary with the diamond texture. The 60th anniversary logo debuted back in 2022 in October. And then the diamond textured one came out just recently, I think back in January. And so I couldn't remember if you had connected the diamond year before this came out, but I remember seeing this after you said that and going, oh, well, now it's super obvious.
For those of you that didn't get it, boing.
But I really like this, I think because it harkens back to that very classic design that was on all of the merchandise. But they chose to use the blue, which I think matches the aesthetic, because when I think Doctor Who, I think of the TARDIS, which I think is, in the realm of this blue. I think back to that original logo on TV, which was blue. It probably would have been a richer blue had we had more high quality televisions back then as well. Yeah. It comes across a lot paler than this does, and I think the bold dark blue of this, which this is actually my favorite color of blue too, so that I'm a little biased on this as well. So my favorite logo in my favorite color is just like the cream of the crop there, but I really like this. I'm glad they've invoked this. I know there was a lot of people when this came out. And they're I think they're mostly New Who people. I think they're mostly people that came to the series more recently. They're not of our age. They weren't exposed to the classic diamond logo back in the day. But there's a lot of those people that I've seen say it looks too cartoonish. I don't get that. I don't think it does. I think that maybe because, and Keith had talked about this in one of the earlier ones. It was just a Missing Adventures one that felt very comic book, and I kind of would maybe equate this look to that, but I wouldn't go so far to say it feels cartoonish.
Well, I think the diamond logo has a certain camp level to it overall, which is ingrained within the show, and having it back for the new series helps bring that kind of camp lightness back to the logo that we haven't had before.
Yeah.
I like the highlight around the Who aspect of it. It makes it nice and different enough and makes it stand out.
This is the greatest reinterpretation of a logo in the history of reinterpretations of logos. Everything about this version is perfect. Anybody who complains about, it looks too cartoony, I think is because they saw it for the first time on the blue background of the Disney Plus service, and they are automatically attaching two things in their mind that don't necessarily go together. They're taking Disney and Doctor Who and thinking animation, and that's why it's going to a cartoon look, because the logo itself does not look like a cartoon.
It's CGI, that's for sure.
Well, but the yellow highlight, the piping around Who, really makes it pop. It stands out without hitting you over the head like the red in the classic logo. The fact that it's all shades of blue and all complementary to each other. We've got the blue, we've got the yellow, and then gray, and that's it. It's a very clean, simple look. But then we go one step further, where the blue within the diamond logo is much deeper and darker in the center. So the Who floats over the top of it a little bit more. It gives it that impression of some depth. And by keeping the styling at the bottom of the diamond, it almost kind of gives the impression of the time vortex kind of sinking back into that. It almost has a 3D effect to it, but it's very subtle. It's got clean lines. It just, I was blown away when I saw it and fell in love instantly. My first reaction was, oh my God, I can't believe they brought the diamond back. my second reaction is, man, I love that look. It is just perfection. And I might even prefer this one over the classic diamond for myself. That's how much I like this one.
Wow, yeah.
And I like moving on to the diamond texture one. I do like the diamond texture behind it. It's a nice addition to it, to kind of keep hitting that nail on the head.
Yeah, the diamond texture of the diamond logo to really accentuate the diamond anniversary, with, again, the 60-year banner at the bottom that's done correctly because it's square as opposed to the arching. It's just a nice touch. I don't prefer this one to the quote-unquote standard 60th anniversary logo, but I appreciate the tongue-in-cheek kind of, yes, this is what we're doing. And it gives it a nice bit of flair.
Keith put in the chat I gotta add this now to the video, but Keith put in the chat the Doctor Who magazine logo.
There's a magazine one too,
which is, it's just basically this version of the standard 60th anniversary with magazine in a straight box across the bottom again. Although it almost works a little better this time. I think that
because they kept the design back.
Yeah, and the font is much more like what it
matches the font. Yeah,
the aesthetic of the font is.
They fixed the magazine or weekly logo and got it right.
I just wish they would have raised it a little bit and we'd have had some asymmetry from top to bottom again. But apparently, I'm the only one who cares about that.
Apparently.
All right. Well, Sean already pretty much stated what his favorite was. Keith, what's your favorite of all these logos? Of the diamond logos?
Is the orange one, the one that was on all the merchandise. I have that on a shirt too, actually. So I think that one's my favorite.
I think I land on that too because the more I think about it, it's almost the perfection of the TV version of the logo. And I say that only because if you're going to put this on something that you want to pop out and grab somebody's attention as far as merchandise goes, this is that logo. And I think aesthetically the colors are just right. I think the font is perfect. I mean, all of the fonts perfect. Of course, you've only got Doctor Who. You haven't added weekly or magazine or anything into it, and so it works. On that basis as well. But I would have to agree. I think the classic merchandise orange logo is still my favorite, but it is very, 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 very close second with the new 60th anniversary logo.
I will allow that maybe the new hotness is influencing me. Just that it's like, hello, old friend, how are you? I mean, it just brought this nostalgia button pushing warmth. And, if you want to push my nostalgia button, I'm okay with that. Ask me again 6 months from now. We'll see if it still holds up.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, that's our review of the Doctor Who Diamond logos through the years. Let us know what you think. You can send some feedback to us. We're asking you to send feedback again. Feedback to travelingthevortex.com, or you can send it to travelingthevortex@gmail.com and let us know what you think. There's also a little box you can click on our website still that I think gives you an option to send feedback. I'll have to double check that. And what do we got coming up next on the schedule?
Next on the schedule, we've got a battle royale between the diamond logos. We're going to pit them against each other and all the other Doctor Who logos and ask you what your favorite is. No, I'm kidding. That's going to be saved for the 70th anniversary. Coming up next, we're going to dip our toes back into the war, the Time War, with The War Doctor Begins, Forged in Fire. This is the one that we decided we needed to go and insert. No, it isn't. We already did that one. I'll catch up with my brain here in a minute. Continuing, this is the beginning of Act 3 of the epic year-long discussion of the Time War. So we are now, at least finally, officially into the third act with The War Doctor Begins and that box set. And then we step aside from the Time War once again to do a review of the new-ish, new to us anyway, Blu-ray and DVD release of the animated Abominable Snowman, the classic Troughton adventure, complete finally in a new format.
Yeah.
Then we'll return to the War Doctor with the next box set of The War Doctor Begins from Big Finish, Warbringer. And then we do another interesting little bit of our 60th anniversary tie-in, if you will, where we're going to start taking a look at Season 6B, the fabled, but not quite so fabled because it is canon now, thanks to Uncle Terry, what may have happened to extend Patrick Troughton's run. And we'll take a look at the, kind of recap the war game. Since we've already reviewed it, we don't go full on in it, but we are going to do the TV story or book version. And then also there's a short trip out there called War Crimes. We'll be looking at, and that's also a book. So we'll be pairing those together before moving on into other avenues.
Yeah. Before we go, I would like to extend a very happy birthday to Rachel over at the Five-ish Fangirls. She just celebrated her birthday this weekend, and it's a big number for her, and I'm not going to announce what that number is on over the podcast, but it is a milestone for her, and congratulations to her for reaching that, and very happy birthday.
We can say it is not a Diamond Jubilee.
That's right. It is not a Diamond Jubilee. Far from it. And don't forget, you can find us at our website, travelingthevortex.com. And if you get any value out of this podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link and consider supporting us. When you become a patron to this podcast, you unlock more audios and specials from us. And of course, we are doing our great Traveling the Vortex Doctor Who trivia quiz. We have number 2 up, and this week's host or master of ceremonies is Keith. So Keith's got 10 more questions for you. You can become a supporter. Just a few dollars helps us out tremendously each month. It helps us keep the lights on here, helps us keep our server, helps us keep continuing to bring you, this Doctor Who content that hopefully you're enjoying. And then you can also consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to this podcast, because that helps us tremendously as well. That gets the word out. People, when it bumps us up in the ratings and it gets our recommendations up there, that helps us out tremendously. So if you could just give us a 5-star review, even say a few words, that would be great. It helps us out tremendously. And then, of course, make sure you join in the conversations on our listeners forum on Facebook. There you can engage with listeners and share your thoughts and insights with us and others. Is there anything else that we need to do before we finish this program? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
Happy birthday, Rachel.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.